Welcome back to Unmasked, where we pull back the curtain on Laguna Beach politics, expose what really happens behind closed doors, demand transparency, accountability, and the end of corruption in our city government. Chris, let's break down what's happening November 18th. City Council is going to be reviewing the design review efficiency ordinance. Um, why is the city all of a sudden trying to make changes? This didn't happen because the city wanted reform. It happened because the state is cracking down on the city and because lawsuits like Pearl Street are happening, and there are 29 active lawsuits at the city right now.
So let's be honest. The city just wake up one day and say, "Hey, let's revise the design review process." They're compelled to make these changes. These changes don't go nearly far enough, and there's currently 29 active lawsuits against the city of Laguna Beach right now, of which the majority relate to housing, and by and large, regarding the design review process and how the city for decades has been abusing its discretion, violating state laws, and violating the residents' property rights. Um, and there's one notable lawsuit, which you and I were both involved in, that got very, very little attention in the city of Laguna Beach. I think we should take a moment and talk about that lawsuit
Well,
and the
and
implications.
how Stu News spun it because Stu News is in Laguna Beach pocket. He
Well,
does
yes.
not report the facts. He reports what the city of Laguna Beach wants him to report, which is a problem that we talk about on Unmasked, how Stu News is very biased.
Well, Stu News is the PR department for the city of Laguna Beach.
100%. And do you think that it's kinda coincidental that all of a sudden they're rushing in for this
Well, I think
change?
no, I think it's a result of the Pearl Street lawsuit that we filed 5 years ago and settled with the city a few months ago. And that lawsuit revolved around subjective bias design review process where the design review and ultimately city council supported, arbitrarily limiting the height of the house based on subjective standards,
Okay,
view
let's talk
equity.
about the subjective standards though. So, they have view equity, neighborhood compatibility, um, village character, what other
Mass and scale.
mass and scale, um, which are not actual legal standards. They are not legal standards. And the city of Laguna Beach is constantly putting themselves in a position to be sued because the state does not provide for subjective criteria.
Now, currently, all use of subjective standards are illegal per state laws.
View equity is a huge one that the city uses to weaponize their decision making. And then they actually are pitting neighbors against each other and making decisions for neighbors instead of for property rights and whatnot. I mean, um, as you know, I had an architect on who talked about one of the things that Emerald Bay is doing is Emerald Bay is following the state housing laws. And if neighbors have issues with the neighbors project, it is up to the neighbors to figure that out amongst themselves, which I think is something Laguna Beach should seriously consider.
Well, the city of Laguna Beach is the only city anywhere that has this ridiculous view equity code requirement, which is impossible to define, completely subjective, and it creates a bias towards the person that just got there first. You don't own a view just because you got it first. That's like localism and surfing. Oh, I got here first. I own this surf spot. This is my wave, and nobody else can surf it except me because I was here first. That's the same thing as view equity. I got mine. You can't have yours.
With Pearl Street, the city violated a lot of state housing laws. I don't think people actually know the details behind the Pearl Street lawsuit and how we actually offered to walk away from the lawsuit if the city would change the municipal code to follow state laws.
That's 100% correct.
What
Uh,
was that offer?
so we made an offer in 2002, I believe, that simply asked the city to revise its municipal code so it was consistent and in conformance with state laws, and by removing all of its illegal use of subjective criteria. In return, we were offering no monetary payment. So the city would get off free if all they had to do was obey the law.
Which is kind of what they're pretending that they're going to do on November 18th.
Well, yeah, and so in that case, the city rejected our offer because they wanted to maintain their subjective, illegal subjective discretion to continue bullying and intimidating homeowners into their will. Fast forward now, after paying out nearly $3 million completely unnecessarily in order to settle that lawsuit, after the courts ruled, they ruled emphatically the city violated state laws and abused their discretion. The city is now putting forth a new ordinance that is meant to remove the subjective standards to get in compliance with state laws. But if you actually read it, it's very narrowly modifying the current design review criteria, and it's adding significantly more restrictions and adding more subjective standards, which is incredible given 29 active lawsuits that are currently and paying out nearly $3 million in 2025. The city still cannot relinquish its illegal use of power and follow state laws and revise its municipal code appropriately.
But why do you think that is? Is it ego? Is it power? Is it really for the good of the people? Because it's costing taxpayers a lot of money, even just defending these lawsuits, plus the payout. So Pearl Street was a $2.5 million payout.
Plus the
All
city's attorney fees.
plus they also had to pay for attorney fees. And we offered to walk away from do not pay our attorney fees, do not pay us 2.5, just change the code to follow the state laws. They rejected it. Why on November 18th are they pretending that they want to fix all the city's problems? I think it's all a front. I don't think it's legitimate. I think that because the public is now watching, I think because people are now talking, they're pretending to fix those problems.
100%. This is purely optics. Now, I will say to give them credit, there are two components to these changes that are legitimate. One is they are making lot line adjustments ministerial, which in every city, lot line adjustments are ministerial. What that means is that it is an administrative, over the counter process, does not require subjective public review, design review, discretionary approval. What is a lot line adjustment? A lot line adjustments, if you have two lots, you're moving your lot lines within your parcel boundaries to accommodate a better development size and shape. The other thing that this ordinance is revising is that it's now making the placement of HVAC units and pools within setbacks non-discretionary. However, there are now several more subjective discretionary items being introduced. Namely, one is landscaping. Landscaping is now subject to view equity.
Which is crazy because view equity is the most illegal, most subjective, most discriminatory lawsuit triggering policy in Laguna Beach, and the city refuses to touch it. I don't understand
No,
it.
no, it's not that they're just not touching it. They're expanding on it. They're
That's true.
now including it in landscape design review. This is an entirely subjective standard. There is no possible way to make this an objective. What does that mean? Objective means there are concrete standards that anybody could review the code and comply with. Subjective standards is where the design review members or the city council members or the planning commission members are exerting their own personal opinion as to what they deem qualifies or satisfies meeting those standards. Mass and scale. Well, I don't know what is mass and scale. Mass and scale is I personally think 16 feet is the height limitation of all houses. Well, I personally think 12 feet. Well, I personally think 15 feet is. Is it 20 feet, 15 feet, 12 feet? I don't know. It's mass and scale. What does scale mean? What is a scale? Well, if scale is I personally think on a 6,500 square foot lot, you should not be able to have a house that's over 4,000 square feet. Or is it 3,000 square feet? Or is it 2,000 square feet? I don't know. It's up to the discretion of the design review board member. There is no objective standards.
So
Neighborhood compatibility
this
is another
Band-Aid
one.
is not gonna fix anything. It's actually, like you said, they're adding more to it, and it's gonna actually subject them to additional lawsuits because they wanna have more control and more power.
I'd love to actually read off some of these new criteria. So the city thinks that because they're revising the design review criteria from, I think it was previously 12 conditions down to 8 conditions. Okay. And let's just talk about them. Design articulation. Articulation techniques, including but not limited to separation, offsets, terracing, and reducing the size of one element in the structure. I'm sorry, and reducing the size of any one element in the structure may be used to reduce appearance of mass. Please explain to me how anything in there is objective? They're now introducing mass and scale back into this design articulation, and they're
So
introducing.
once again, they're saying that you do not have the right to build within your property envelope.
No, they're saying, and furthermore, they're also suggesting that the design review board is actually gets to play architect,
And they're not all qualified to play
and they get to say,
architect.
"Oh no, no, I think that you should articulate and slant and cut back and set
Well,
back."
it's funny that you say that because Bob Whalen, who is currently a city council member, when he was on planning commission, I think you remember this, he came to the Art Lofts property site where Lewis had a home at the time. And on planning commission, he said, well, I think if you set this back a little bit and you reduce the mass and you reduce the scale and you do this and you do that, it is 100% something that I would definitely support. By the way, they were great ideas. And so we took those ideas and we implemented those.
So that
Then
is an example of
that is an
design
yes.
articulation. That was his personal opinion
Mhm.
of how to redesign
Our
the
project.
project and
Yes.
play architect.
So then after he got done playing architect and he decided he wanted to further his political career, he then went to city council. He was elected for city council and then he voted against the project. I just wanted to point that all out for Bob Whalen and who he is and what he's done for the community. And I'm also going to be playing some clips of Bob Whalen, who, by the way, is an attorney and knows how to, well, you would hope, would know how to interpret the code. He also voted against Pearl Street as well, which resulted in the $2.5 million payout because he did not want to follow state laws. Peter Blake said, follow state laws. We are not here to break state laws. And Bob Whalen and Sue Kemp stood behind, you know what? Laguna Beach needs to have subjective criteria, and we're going to illegally break the state housing laws, which again resulted in a $2.5 million payout, plus paying for our attorney fees when all they had to do was follow the laws. And these are the people that are in power year after year, and I believe will probably run for reelection because they can't give up that power and the support of Village Laguna.
Well, they're politicians, and there's a reason why they continue to be reelected. And people like Peter Blake have not been reelected and are no longer in city council because Peter wasn't focused on his reelection. Peter was focused on
The
the
community.
facts and the truth. He may have been blunt and may have offended certain people, but Bob Whalen and Sue Kemp have been very crafty in maintaining their power. It's resulting in
Lawsuits.
lawsuit after lawsuit. So
I'd like to know how many of the 29 lawsuits has Bob Whalen bid on city council for? How many of the 29
Well, all of them.
lawsuits has Sue Kemp been on the council for?
I would probably say all of them.
And on top of that, circling back to Peter Blake also was pretty much calling out the people of Pearl Street and how they had a fake sale on selling the property so that they can get around the agreement that we had with Tanya, the neighbor, of which Tony Eisman was meeting with Tanya behind closed doors and advising her on what to do and what to say with that Pearl Street lawsuit. So pretty much Tony Eisman, Bob Whalen, and Sue Kemp behind closed doors really advocated for two neighbors, of which one of them is selling their house now. It cost the taxpayers $2.5 million plus attorney fees. All of that could have been avoided if they didn't have any bias against us, number one, of which Peter Blake also called them out for because they were personally attacking us.
Well, it highlights uh, the chief issue with this subjective discretion, because what it does is it favors who you know and what type of relationships you have. And so, if you don't have personal relationships with these individual city council members, they will use that subjective discretion to approve or deny your project, while they may approve it for somebody else under the exact same standards, because they have a relationship with
Well,
them.
I feel like Mark Christie has gotten a lot approved because of Mark Christie's relationships with members of the community, which again isn't a bad thing. But here they are villainizing Chris Dornan, the developer from Las Vegas, which, Tony Eisman, Chris Dornan is not a developer from Las Vegas. He spent many nights at your house, was friends with your son. But, we won't talk about any details of that. Maybe another segment, which that would be fun. But, at the end of the day, you're right. It is about relationships and not really the community and their relationship with Village Laguna and their relationship with reelection. But I'm sorry, let's get back to the list of other things that they're trying to slip through because I feel like it's important for people to actually know what they're trying to slip in with the optics of what's happening November 18th.
They are looking to simplify the design review work criteria down to 8 items. Of those eight,
One
one,
was
two,
mass and
three,
scale.
four, five, six of the eight are all 100% subjective items. Number one, design articulation. That's purely the personal decision making of the design review member. Number
Okay.
two,
Lawsuit.
landscaping. Well, landscaping is now subject to view equity. So now that is now 100% subjective. Lighting and glare. This one's amazing. Lighting and glare. Most cities, we built a home in Sun Valley, Idaho. There was very objective standards for lighting and glare. It was clearly defined. Was it visible from the highway or major roads? Was there uplighting into the sky? This is very, very subjective in that it just says it should be avoided or mitigated to a level of insignificance, according to who, in those locations where those services are visible from neighboring properties. Oh, great! Now you're entitling your neighbors to have
So wait, let me get
to
this
have
straight.
approval rights over your lighting, as opposed to having a very objective standard that's clear cut, fair for every single person.
Or
And you could
following
then you could
building
design
codes.
it
What about
going
building codes? Or following
well,
the building
I
codes?
mean, you need adequate lighting. Well, I don't know what's adequate. My interpretation of adequate and your interpretation of adequate might be
Well, but if
completely
I'm
different.
80 years old, my interpretation of adequate lighting is gonna be very different than someone who's 20,
Well, I would have to interpret adequate would be adequate according to the decision making of the design review. So now we're back to subjective.
of
Next
which
one.
design review is appointed by city council. Therefore, city council is only going to appoint people whom they believe will also advocate their agenda.
Correct. Another one of them, neighborhood compatibility. What is neighborhood compatibility?
It's illegal.
There is no objective standards for neighborhood compatibility. Oh, we'd like to be within the character and the qualities that distinguish areas within the city, um, including mass and scale. Well, another,
Mass and
you
scale.
notice how
Again,
they consistently insert subjective criteria on top of subjective criteria into each one of these standards, making it impossible for any
but let
applicant
me ask
to
you a
design
question.
their project
How
ahead of
are
time
they
to meet these standards and know whether or not they can get a project
But how
approved.
are they gonna do this within 2 meetings? So now they're saying that it's no longer gonna be 3 meetings, it's gonna be 2 meetings, but yet they've added
Great point.
another list of items that you have to consider. Here at our office building, the subjective criteria was insane. They took 2 years to approve our project. The first year was spent on a historical report. Almost a year later, the historical report was produced, of which the city paid for and hired their own consultant because we said we weren't gonna do
And
that
delayed the project
and
nearly 2
delayed
years.
and delayed the project, of course. That is their agenda with every project. Historical report comes back that guess what?
It wasn't
It is
historical.
not historical. So then they decided to design the building.
No, no, no. Wait. First, they said we don't really care what the historical study is that we commissioned says. we still think it's historical
Well,
because we're all historians, right?
but one of the planning commissioners actually, because they're so uneducated and so uninformed, one of them actually said that he believes that it is historical, even though
Irrespective of what the historian
yes.
concluded, the city's historian concluded,
Right.
by the
So
way.
because there is a patchwork brick pattern that the neighborhood has enjoyed for I don't know how long,
I think since the 70s, maybe.
70s, I think you're right, of which needs proper waterproofing, has done damage to the public sidewalk, of which people can trip, can fall, can get hurt, which would be another city issue.
Well, it's public street.
So they would get sued over it. It is lifted about, I would say, a good 12 inches off the ground. Um, they said, well, we don't actually care what the report is. So sorry for the delay. We still don't care about the report. We want you to keep all the brick pattern in place, of which is not waterproofed correctly, of which they don't care. And they're making design decisions on our project that the historian said that the building is not historical. So they wanted the brick. They thought the historical report would back up their bias. Historical report came back that the brick is not historical. It does not need to be kept. But then they went on and said, you know what? We don't care anyway. You have to keep it. That is a subjective criteria that I believe will continue to open up lawsuits in Laguna Beach. Plus, now it's 2 years later and the building is in disrepair, and we're still having to sit down with Anthony and get our brick pattern approved for our driveway.
Well, I mean, that's the city's strategy. The city's strategy is to delay you, wear you down, beat you up, intimidate you, cost you so much money that you actually abandon any plans, which is suppressing values. It's suppressing people's ability to make improvements to their homes, for their growing families, or for their elderly family members that need to move back in with them. It's incredible how, even with all of these new ADU laws, how many people are still struggling to get ADUs approved in the city of Laguna Beach.
I have a gentleman who will be coming on the podcast soon. It took him over a year to get an ADU approved, which
And
is
that's supposed to
illegal
be a
over the counter.
administrative process, but the city has somehow managed to inject its subjective criteria of which one? Ding, ding, ding. Guess what? U equity, U equity, which they continually use to modify, redesign every single project that exists out there. So, and people may look at this on the surface and go, "Well, I think that's kind of a good thing," but they're not taking into consideration how it's being abused. And by being abused is there needs to be clear standards when applicants come in and make applications and file applications. Make it clear cut so that they don't come in and propose projects that don't meet those standards. Right now, nobody knows what those standards are. It's funny because people are complaining about all the commercial vacancies in town and why restaurants can't make them. And they say, oh, it's the landlords. The landlords charge too much rent. Well, you know why the landlords have to charge rent? Because it costs so much freaking money to get anything approved and done this town that they have to charge a rent that actually justifies the cost. If the city would streamline their process, make clear standards, stop moving the goalposts.
Wait a minute. I have a question about clear standards. At one point, the city said, we're not going to allow any chains to come in here. But yet they defaced an iconic building, BJ's Pizza, Brew House and Pizza, and it's Better Buzz. Isn't Better Buzz a chain?
Yeah, it's owned by a private equity firm with multiple locations, the same branding. So I don't know how you don't consider that a chain or a franchise. It's clear the city's trying to loosen up their guidelines with respect to that. But again, what are they using? They're using their subjective, discretionary decision making on that. So they're picking and choosing which ones they like and which ones they don't like. And that's why there's so much vacancy in this town because not only is the issue that tenants are concerned about whether they can get what the actual guidelines and the standards are, the timeline to get approval for any business. I don't care if you're a nail salon, a retail shop, a restaurant. It doesn't matter what it is.
A
Even if
masseuse.
it's something that's exactly, even if it's very low intensity use, it still takes up to 12 to 18 months to get approved and operating. Small businesses can't afford that. They can't take that risk capital,
Well, and the
and they have to
landlords
start.
can't afford it either because the tenants are either asking for free rent until they're up and operating, or the landlords are asking for that tenant saying, okay, we're going to give you 3, 6, 8 months, and then you have to start paying rent.
So it's resulting in subpar businesses opening or no business opening at all because nobody wants to go through the brain damage and costs. It nearly bankrupts most tenants before they can even open for business to just get a certificate of occupancy in Laguna Beach.
That's true. So, what do we do to change it?
Well, I said this on the Voice of Laguna, and I'll continue to say it. When the pain is great enough, behavior will change. And what we're seeing right now is because of the actions that we've taken with some of our lawsuits, by finally stepping up, we're also seeing uh, other residents in Laguna say, "Wait a minute, this
Well, we
isn't
have
right.
people coming to us and asking us for
This isn't
advice.
legal,"
Yes.
and I can actually stand up for myself. And I think we're going to see more and more and more of that. And the court systems, the judges, the state officials have made it absolute, and attorney generals have made it 100% clear that they will continue to rule in the favor of the residents against these cities that are violating the laws. And that will continue, and you're going to see this raining down harder and harder to the point where the city may face absolute bankruptcy. That will cause, I think, a turnover with some of our leadership, and it'll bring new, fresh leadership in here that will move the city forward in a responsible manner. Now, we're not saying high rises. We're not saying turn this into some crazy, Coney
Miami.
Island feel.
Yeah.
What we're saying is clearly identify with objective standards. This is exactly what you need to do to get approval, and that's it. And have no
But
discretion
Chris, how are
at
we
the
going to
design
have
review board.
change in leadership if the same people are getting reelected over and over
We
again?
need term limits. We
I
need term
agree.
limits, and people need to be held accountable. And we need the media in Laguna Beach, which is Laguna Beach Independent and Stu News, to actually do some real
Well,
journalism.
Stu News is out. Stu News is
Well,
out.
Laguna Beach Independent is no different.
Well, but I think Stu News is the
Those
worst.
are advertising machines. Their
It's true.
only care is putting out content that can generate revenue. They could care less about actual journalism. They could care less about.
Well, they need to hire real journalists, I think is the problem.
Actually don't even need real journalists. They just need to disclose unbiased, factual things that are occurring in the city so that the residents know what's going on and what decisions leadership is making.
So, going back to if the pain is great enough, the behavior will change. Temple Hills land, that's a massive lawsuit that people are villainizing us over. And I don't think people truly understand the details of this lawsuit. $149 million lawsuit, right?
149.6
To be
to
exact.
be exact.
Okay. And minimum interest on 149.6 for the
Nine
illegal taking?
federal statutory interest is 9% dating back to the period that the taking occurred all the way through. So we are looking at over 3.5 years at this point.
Yep. And what is the likeliness that a judge is fed up with the city of Laguna Beach and their illegal takings?
Well, considering this is the number one focus of the attorney general and all judges in California is to encourage housing, and the city has taken some of the most egregious, outrageous actions probably ever. At least the point of being disclosed to the public and getting into legal dispute to prevent housing. I think that this is going to get a lot of attention from a judge.
I want to talk about Hallie Jones.
Let's talk about Holly Jones.
Let's talk
We went to
about
school.
Hallie
We grew up
Jones.
together.
Yes. Were you not nice to her? Because she does not like you.
I actually thought we were kind of friends in school, but I kind of thought everybody was my friend, so I could be wrong. She might have actually really hated me. I have no idea.
I would be on the fence of like she definitely doesn't like you. There was an email from her previous to her being on the city council, correct?
You're talking about when she was president of the Laguna Canyon Foundation.
Yeah. What did that email say? Can you refresh my memory?
Well, it was an email between Hallie and city council members, and
City council members as in Bob Whalen?
yes, Bob Whalen would be
Sue
one of them.
Kemp?
Correct.
Okay, just wanna
And
clarify for
various
everybody else.
other staff members inquiring about the purchase of our land and what can be
Anthony
done
Vera was
to.
on there as well?
He certainly was.
Okay.
What triggered the email was the disclosure of our development plans.
Right. And then, coincidentally, there was a computer glitch. And we'll get
Yes,
back to the
apparently.
RPR reports.
Yeah, we talking about the RPR reports. You have
Okay, so let's start
a
off.
computer glitch that is done by a manual staff member. So it must have been an AI robot staff member that caused the computer glitch.
Well, our depositions would say, I think not. So the depositions, we are legally allowed to give that to the public, anybody that wants to read it, correct?
Absolutely.
So if you want the depositions, DM us at unmasked podcast underscore, and we'll be more than happy to send those to you for, pleasure reading on a weekend on a rainy day. But Chris, you are the expert at this now, thanks to the city of Laguna Beach. Walk us through the illegal takings that the city of Laguna Beach and the Laguna Canyon Foundation were pretty much working hand in hand to try to make these parcels unbuildable.
Well, we didn't actually learn about this until well after we purchased the land in this lawsuit commenced. And after reviewing some of the discovery documents were provided to us, we started piecing together, which was a really incredible um, relationship between the city of Laguna Beach and the Laguna Canyon Foundation, which I would say definitely crosses the line of corruption and as a way of the city to circumvent public disclosure laws when purchasing private property in the city of
So
Laguna Beach.
I think you need to be a little more clear about what the Laguna Canyon Foundation actually does. I don't think anybody knows.
Well, the Laguna Canyon Foundation received grants from the city of Laguna Beach and signs contracts with the city of Laguna Beach. So, derives the majority of their income from the city of Laguna Beach to do things like fire abatement studies and other studies and inspections in order to um, further their mandate of creating more open space in the city of Laguna Beach. And they do that due to two means. They either work with the city to restrict the development of properties by blocking access. And so then it just de facto turns into open space because there's nothing you do with that land. Or two, they work with the city to buy the land
Wait, but back
illegally.
up. When they do that, they're devaluing people's properties
Well, 100%.
so that they could buy it on the cheap.
Well, they do two things. One, they either try to devalue the property by working with the city to restrict development on the property, such that the property owner abandons and they can buy abandons the property and they can buy it on the cheap. Or in some cases, the property owner just abandons it so much that the property goes into foreclosure and they buy the liens and then they commence the foreclosure on the property. But what's interesting is they don't actually own any property directly themselves.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. So what they do is they put the property into contract. Then they go out and seek funds, largely via grants from the city of Laguna Beach. And then at closing, they deed title back to the city. And they don't do this for any other entity. The only entity in which they purchase property on their behalf is the city of Laguna Beach. And we all know when the city of Laguna Beach wants to go buy property like Tiamo, uh, the property in the canyon right now that they're looking to do under the land trust to create artist housing,
The private school.
it was a St. Catherine's School in Victoria. That all went through highly scrutinized public disclosure and a public review process.
But
Where
in
they,
this process, they get to kinda sweep that under the rug and take
so
ownership
what
of
they
the
do is they
property.
legally circumvent public disclosure process by funneling funds through the Laguna Canyon Foundation, who then purchase the property and vest title in the city's name. So it goes all the way back to the city, and the city then owns the property. Doesn't have to go through any disclosure process, and then they deem it open space and they prevent the property from being developed.
They're gonna say that this is for the good of the community.
Well, sure, until it happens to your property.
True. So, Temple Hills land. Let's talk about the ways that they have essentially blocked access to developing said land.
So 19.15 acres, 12 individual parcels, master planned in the late 1800s for residential use. The road network was all recorded. Road easements were recorded throughout the property with three distinct roads: one through Rimrock Canyon Road, one through Rimrock Canyon Road, and another one off of Temple to serve the property. All these roads have been recorded and were master planned over 100 years ago. And so what the city has done is they have illegally blocked all three road accesses, all in a way to prevent access to the property and then deem it unbuildable, so that they could ultimately make it public open space. They have created public walking trails through the property illegally.
The Laguna Canyon Foundation has current board members that are also affiliates or held positions at the city.
Yes, current and former board members include Sue Kempf, Ken Frank, Hallie Jones.
So, Temple Hills land, they have strategically blocked access. Can you talk about how they've done that?
Yeah, first, they granted a revocable license to a neighbor to expand their yard and put a fence in the middle of our road, which blocks our road access. Which is interesting about that is they didn't record this license agreement on our property. They recorded it on the neighbor's property so that they could spring this trap at a later point in time. Because in order to record this license agreement on our property, they would have needed our consent or the previous owner's consent, which
Which
they
they
knew
did
they
not
would never
have.
get. They would never
Exactly.
get the consent to do that. And so what they did was they illegally did it
But let's
without
back
the
up.
consent
It
of
is
the
a
property owner.
revocable easement,
It's a revocable one, so they could
of
very
which
easily
they're
revoke it.
refusing to revoke.
And they
And
are refusing to revoke this license agreement.
now, to be clear, our attorneys have requested several times for this to be revoked,
Correct.
which is also another pending lawsuit.
Well, that's the base. It's part of the basis of the lawsuit. And
Well,
meanwhile, this road, said road, we have title insurance on. Because when we purchased it, we did proper due
which
diligence.
is what I was speaking to, is the
Uh,
title company has the right to sue as well.
we did proper due diligence. We hired expert land use attorneys. We hired a title insurance company to review the title and ownership history of these properties, and we were able to ensure that that is in fact our road. We have access to it. They did what's called a springing trap, and they recorded this on not our property, but the neighbor's property, so that we have no way of knowing this existed until we submitted our development application. And that's when the city informed us, oh, gee, there's a issue that you need to resolve. And they said there's something that's blocking your road access, of which they controlled. The second act they took was they conditioned a property that was up for design review board approval on Upper Rimrock Canyon. They said, we'll approve the development of a single family home under the condition that property owner blocks our road access to our property.
Which is completely illegal.
With, again, they did that. You can't unilaterally restrict someone's rights to their property. They have to consent to said restrictions.
Now, to be clear, is this planning commission, design review, or city council?
Well, this is city council. It's a combination of all of them. It's a
Right.
combination of design review and city council.
Right. And then there's a third one.
Well, and then they also took a public walking trail easement illegally on the third road off of Temple without our Temple Hills parcels consent. They took that easement, recorded it on title for the purposes of blocking that road access, and then creating a public walking trail onto our property again without the consent. So that's what's called inverse condemnation, and it's an illegal act or a taking act. It's a physical taking. The city actually physically took our property and made it public lands. The only way you can do that is by paying just compensation.
And the city of Laguna Beach, their stance now is that we just need to go through the process. Why is that not even a possibility?
Well, the city's position is that we have not exhausted our administrative efforts to get our development application approved. The fatal flaw in that is that they've already taken these actions prior to the submission of our development application to block our road access.
And I think it's important that people understand that this was planned.
Oh, this was planned many years, continued. It was done prior to our ownership without anyone's knowing. And people say, oh, well, you can't sue for things that were done prior to your ownership. Yes, we can, because when we bought the property, we also transferred all the rights of the previous owners to us. Okay. And these actions were taken illegally and unknowingly to the previous owners.
So, Chris, I feel like the second thing that the city is going to try to do to obviously villainize us and or get out of paying $50 million of interest, which is owed based on the value of the
Well, that's only
property.
if they undo their bad acts and allow us to develop the property.
Right. But I feel like the city thinks that if they undo their bad acts, that then we have to go through the process. Of course, they're going to delay and probably put up even more roadblocks. But I do feel like they're not taking this seriously, that there's $50 million of taxpayers' money at risk, plus attorney fees.
Again, it's either as it stands right now, it's 149.6 million, or they undo all their bad acts, allow us to proceed with development, and they pay us interest for the period of time they're taking, which that equates to about $50 million.
They're in a situation that they can't get out of either way.
Well, the good thing is that that's coming to a head. That all discovery, all depositions have been completed on this, and we're set to go to trial in the next couple of months here.
So where do we go from here after trial? It's either 50 million or 149.6 million. So I'm not sure if we're allowed to talk about this or not, but we did go to mediation with them to try to resolve this so it didn't result in 50 million or 149.6 million. And they brought zero to the table,
No, the city was not interested in resolving this lawsuit.
which is the exact same thing that they did with Pearl Street that cost them over $2.5 million in payouts and legal fees.
Probably 1% from a scale size of order of magnitude compared to this lawsuit.
So I know that this isn't completely correlated, but it is. The process and the power needs to change in Laguna Beach. The hearing that they're having on November 18th, they're sliding in new conditions. Can you finish that list of conditions and what the potential lawsuits are going to be? Because they continue to add subjective criteria with this band-aid that they're pretending that they're going in to try to fix.
Well, it's interesting. Um, so they're reaffirming their subjective criteria via design articulation, landscaping by use of view equity, lighting and glare without any objective standards, neighborhood compatibility, which by virtue itself is subjective, but by
Illegal.
inserting mass and scale, which is another subjective criteria, privacy, which is not defined in any objectable manner, which is defined as something that would result in a substantial invasion of privacy of neighborhood property should be minimized. Minimized to what standards? Minimized to who?
Well, what
Right?
constitutes privacy? If I'm sitting on my balcony and I don't want anyone to see me anymore, does that mean they don't get to have a balcony?
What's funny is almost everybody's house in Laguna Beach um, doesn't have full privacy because the lots are generally small. So it's absolutely utterly ridiculous to introduce something like this. And then the last one, which they're reaffirming, is view equity. And it's just incredible how they refuse to let this one go, and they just continue to reaffirm and reaffirm and reaffirm it. Now,
But
uh,
the state housing laws say that view equity is illegal.
correct.
So why are we even bothering November 18th to pretend like we're trying to make changes to protect the city?
Well, because they are making some minor modifications with like the lot line adjustments and the HVAC and pools and
Which are all
setbacks
great,
um, to get more in compliance with the state laws.
but
And
not 100% in compliance
well, not
because
even
then
like
that
not
would
even
give away
50%,
power.
not even like, substantially. And then they're using this also to further add more restrictions. And let's talk about this, right? So they're limiting now the design review process to 2 hearings, which on the surface you can go, well, maybe that's a good thing. But by the implementation and reaffirmation of all this subjective criteria, there is no way anyone can get their house approved because no one is psychic. And what they say at one hearing and then what they change their mind in the next hearing is it's impossible to predict for any applicant. So what does that mean? That means more fees, more money. 2 hearings, you don't get approved, you got to go back through the whole process all over again.
And another 2 hearings, or you get to
and
appeal it to city
and you got to
council.
pay more fees, right?
Right.
And here's what's interesting. One of the main things that they uh, put in here as one of their new changes, that the application cannot be complete without the payment of application fees. So this looks to me like by limiting it to 2 hearings, and um, an application is automatically withdrawn if they don't respond to incomplete comments within 90 days. So if you can't figure out and predict how to modify your project based on comments that you get, it is automatically it is automatically withdrawn after 90 days. And then you have to go through and submit the fee process all over again. So this sounds to me like this is an opportunity for the city to generate more revenue. Interesting enough, they are also adding in more environmental context, so making it more restricted. They are also adding more staking requirements. I know we all love
What's
staking.
funny about the
I
staking
mean, that
is
is like the most profitable business that
it is,
exists
it's
out there.
very expensive, and with every change, you have to restake.
And right. And so now they are adding more staking requirements
That's amazing.
for coastal developments. Um, they are also adding a new definition of environmentally sensitive area. They are, oh, and this is a great one. They are exempting wireless communication facilities owned and operated by the city from permit requirements. That means
That they can
they
come put it right next to your
they
home,
can
and
just go
there's
put
nothing
a
you could do about it.
wireless communication facility right next to your house, and you could be just sucking in EMF for all your kids and the rest of your family. And it's not subject to permit requirements. That means you may not even get notice that this is occurring.
That's
It's just
actually
shocking
very
that they just
scary.
snuck this in here.
That's very scary, especially with how aware we are now of the EMFs and the cell phone towers and et cetera, what's happening. Wow, that's a lot.
So stay tuned. Hope everybody comes out, makes their voices heard, and demands the city um, further revise this design review efficiency ordinance to be fully in compliance and fully removes all use of subjective criteria.
But that it doesn't stop there, Chris. They're also giving themselves unlimited power with these new things that they're trying to slip
Well, I
in
mean,
there.
isn't that what all politics? I mean, what do you think? What do you think the government shut down a budget that was approved? I'm sure there was many, many things that were negotiated and slipped in there. Our city it doesn't exclude themselves from that political, misdealings.
Chris, thanks for doing this with me. I know you didn't want to come on, but I thought it was important because you've had a lot of free education and a lot of legal education now in all of these manners. And I really appreciate the fact when people are reaching out to us now that you are taking time out of your day, you are advising them on their rights, and the things that they can and can't do. You're handing them over the right contacts to help them get through the process, because I think the city of Laguna Beach needs to realize that it's not just us that can stomach and financially be able to keep fighting the city. People are going to start coming together, and there's going to be class action lawsuits. And the attorneys that are well versed now in the dealings of Laguna Beach, they're only getting more business. And I do really appreciate the fact that you do take time out of your day to speak with people and advise them of their legal housing rights, because nobody deserves to be bullied by the city. More oftentimes than not, as you know, they're not willing to come onto the podcast and talk about it until after they go through the process, because they're so terrified of the backlash and being bullied. But I think now, with our experience and the contacts that we have, I think it's giving people a sense of power that they can find back. So I really do appreciate, because I know that you don't like doing this.
Well, it took us 20 years to get to this point, right?
It did.
We didn't just come out of the gates and say, "Let's just start suing the city." We were beaten down, we were intimidated, our property rights were violated time and time and time again. We abandoned many projects. We had these subjective, discretionary abuses of power exerted on us over and over again. We went through this process, delays that financially burdened us at a point in time where we didn't have the resources, and it created a lot of stress while we were trying to, plan for our family
And our future
and our future.
in Laguna Beach.
And we're now in a place where we have not only the fortitude but the resources to fight back and make a difference. And what we're hoping to do is effectuate positive change so that the average individual can move forward in a seamless process. The only reason that any project should require any type of public design review process is if they're requesting variances.
Agree
That's it.
100%.
Only if you're requesting variances, which means it's not explicitly stated in the code. The code should be explicit, should be objective, and as long as you meet those standards, you should get approved at the staff level over the counter without any public hearing, which all it does is entitle all of the neighbors to believe that they have some right to design your house and tell you, well, I have mine, you can't have yours. That needs to change. And it can only change by revising the policy, making it so that only variances require any type of public design review process, and making everything else fully over the counter and approved based on what the objective code says.
I 100% agree, and I really do hope that people dig into the details for the November 18th meeting, and that they speak up and they send emails to the city council members, because they're adding additional things into this ordinance that they're trying to pass. And people
Yeah,
need
you
to
need to
be
speak up
informed.
because city council members have made it clear they don't care about what's right or wrong. They care about getting reelected. And so they want to hear, they need to hear from you to know, is this going to hurt me at the ballot box when it comes up to reelection? That's the only thing they care about is maintaining their power. And the city council members that come in here that don't care about their maintaining their power and don't care about playing
Politics.
sleazy politics, they don't last.
Well, Peter Blake, perfect
And
example.
George Weiss,
Perfect
one term,
example.
done and done. Those individuals speak their mind. They're frank, whether you agree with them or not. They are clear in their decision making. They're not constantly weaseling, playing games, playing
Well,
favorites,
and they let you know where they're at.
abusing the process, and abusing their power.
Agree. If you've experienced abuse, delays, corruption, or illegal treatment in the design review process, reach out. Your story matters, and Unmasked will give you a platform. Follow us, support transparency, and stay tuned, because the truth matters.